Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. Are wristlocks the best move in jiu-jitsu or the worst? There's a lot of stigma around this move and we unpack it today in the episode. Joey and I go back and forth. Is this old school dogma hating on wristlocks, or are people who do wristlocks bad people? Also, is the wristlock a valid move? Does it require setup? Is it technical? Or is it just a quick flash in the pan that's not technical and just for the tap? Also, there are some famous wrist lockers. How did they do it? Was it effective? Gi, no gi, find out. But last and not least, if you've been wrist locked, what does that mean? And what does that say about the person who did it to you? Are they effective at submission grappling, or are they a bad person? Let's unpack it. Let's get into it. The facts will be revealed. Also, while you're there, we appreciate you here. Another thing we would appreciate is for you to like and subscribe. It means a lot to us. And if you're listening to this on an audio platform, give us a 5-star rating. It's a big help. Us. Are wrist locks the best or nastiest submission in BJJ? It is a hot topic. It will polarize people. Love them or hate them, you cannot deny them. They work. And we need to unpack it for folks because people get triggered on this, Joe. People get very upset when you talk about wrist locks.
Why is there this conventional hate in jiu-jitsu towards wrist locks?
It's a mixture of things. We had this the other week. We had someone say, oh, it's ineffective. Now, as to whether or not something is effective is up to the individual practitioner. I believe it is to do with injury. If you've ever been on the wrong end of a wrist lock, and I have, it can wreck you for months. Actually, for you can feel it forever, basically. And I believe because of that, and because it's a submission that doesn't require a lot of technique per se, like in the same way you might.
It's a quick one.
Yeah, it's just like
It's the equivalent of falling back on an ankle lock.
It can be, but there are endless levels of iteration on a wrist lock, right? Like there's little control. No.
You don't have to pass the guard. Not always. But I think, but it's the same, right, with a leg lock, like
or a guillotine, or like you can grab it and crank it and get a submission. But there are folks who are very effective at it and very technical about it.
Yeah.
And we can get into that. But I believe it is injury that makes people hate it. So if you're out there, you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I've been wrist locked. That f***ed me up. I hate dirty wrist lockers. But then you talk to folks who are like, yep, I've won championships on this. I'll do it. You know, it's like, what's the saying? Like, why would you neglect
50? Why would you ignore 50% of the human
Why
body?
would you neglect 1.5% of the human body? If a tap's a tap, right? This is the argument.
Yeah, I mean, like fair point. My impression is that it's the old guard of jiu-jitsu, the same old guard that speaks with the funny accent.
No, I don't. I totally disagree with this.
And created the disdain for leg locks.
No.
I reckon it's that.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it is either it works for you or it works against you. It's rare that you find someone who's kind of in the middle. It's hard to find someone who's like on the fence about it. Yeah, oh yeah, sure, it's valid. I do it, I don't do it. There's either folks who love it or folks who freaking hate it. And it's not necessarily old guard, new guard, because I believe that if we look at the history of jiu-jitsu, more folks were doing wrist locks 20 years ago compared to now.
Back then, yeah, but were they considered dog?
Yes. Funny you mention
like
it,
the
Joe.
leg lockers, right?
Yeah.
Dogs.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
What do they call? They call them chickens. What do they call them? Brazilian thing.
Frango, like dead chickens.
Some word that was used. That people would yell at from the stands, wasn't there?
Possibly. But okay, so let's go back a bit further and look at like wrist locks. Now, if you go to the treasure trove, which is Reddit, folks will go pretty deep and say, actually, Aikido is renowned for its wrist locks.
Yeah.
They did more wrist control manipulation work than anyone else, even though BJJ obviously has incorporated it into its grappling.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll save this for the next chat, but like if you're disarming someone with a weapon, a knife, a gun, like being able to wrist lock someone's quite valuable, right?
Yep.
And to be able to control a whole person just by being able to control their hand is very valuable, especially if you're like a law enforcement officer or a bouncer. Like that's handy.
Yeah.
Because you're inflicting a lot of pain and you're now controlling someone. It's very efficient.
Yep.
Let's say that to its credit. There's a famous gentleman named Fredson Paschal, I might be saying that wrong, Paschal Mello, who eventually became an MMA fighter, but was a world champion in jiu-jitsu and was renowned for absolutely destroying people's wrists from closed guard too, and was hated for this, like injured people, like bad intentions kind of guy. I'm not saying
which is pretty much every grappler. Like think about leg locks.
Yeah.
Every coming in, like in competition.
Shit, yeah.
See, I think this is old guard shit.
No. But what I'm saying is...
Tell me more about Paschal.
Paschal. Well, he's actually was quite a successful MMA fighter. Like he fought in every major organization, the UFC, WEC, like Jungle Fight. Like this guy fought
all the early days kind of
so much stuff from the... But he was a world champion at purple belt in the 90s, and he won at black belt like 2001, like at featherweight, I believe, but was kind of hated but he really was a big exponent of it. And I want to jump from like an old school, because he was a gi guy, even though he went to MMA and did that.
We were all gi guys back then.
Well, who wasn't a gi guy? But then let's look at a guy like Mike Perez. Mike Perez is Atos. He's a modern day no gi specialist. I think he's won worlds. I think he might have even won the absolute. Maybe it pans. I don't know. Like for those of you out there, shout out Mike Perez. He's a beast. He almost ended Craig Jones with a wrist lock in no-gi at Kasai back in 2018. You guys can Google it. Craig actually, he came back and talked about how sore his wrist was, like months after that event.
Right.
And I believe Craig lost that match in the whole Kasai tournament, and because Mike swept him up off. He didn't finish the wrist lock, but he has this killer wrist lock from close guard. And then let's look at the popularity of Pete the Greek, wrist locked the world. Lestos.
Who's Pete the Greek? Lestos.
Pete the Greek, wrist locked the world.
Is he from Melbourne?
No, he's not actually.
That's where all Greeks come from.
That's where they go. That's where they go when the Greek economy collapses. Move to Melbourne. There's jobs there. But no, he's got like a ton of instructionals on BJJ Fanatics. It's very popular. He's a popular guy. He's good friends with good
Jocko.
He's friends with Jocko, and he's also friends with old mate Glover.
Teixeira.
No, not MMA fighter, but he's very well known. He's liked, but he's a kind of polarizing figure because he just believes this is the way.
Well, I mean, so yeah, I can't help but think that the reason I think it comes from that old guard piece is because there was some kind of
honorable.
Well, yeah, there was some kind of nobility or honor that was ascribed to jiu-jitsu fundamentals of takedown, pass guard, control, and then like submit, arm bars, basic submission, Americana,
sure.
But not basic, but you know, the fundamental submissions. And in that way of thinking, then anything that didn't involve those steps, so jumping on a heel hook, jumping on a strangle lock was like, that's a dishonorable way to win. And I think that because wrist locks often come out of opportunistic, maybe standing, you grab a grip, that kind of thing, that it was relegated to the same level of shame.
No, I can't agree with that in the sense that like wrist locking in judo is a legit defense to break a grip.
Yeah.
So it comes from the traditional idea of stand-up fighting. Like judokas use it, right? If you can't break someone's grip,
but leg locks come from like traditional jiu-jitsu too.
Very, very old school. Yeah,
like they weren't getting criticized for it back in the feudal era Japan.
Well,
whereas now
you're trying to take someone's sword off them. It's a different story.
Yeah, but you know what? Like this was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fabricated thing. It was like, we don't like that. That's a shit submission.
I don't.
And then Dean Lister comes along and shows every What's up?
I don't know if that's
Shout out
true.
Dan Lister.
I don't know if that's true. I look, a lot of wrist locks are also organized from closed guard. Closed guard is a very traditional position.
I mean, sure, it can. It doesn't always come about from an opportunistic moment.
It can be done from anywhere. Let's say that. The reason why I think there is an argument for wrist locks, or why certain folks love wrist locks, is they're efficient. Once you know how to do them, you can inject them into a lot of places in the game. Also, that said, it is a pain-relevant submission. People will often tap off pain. And people who are prepared to eat them and fight out of them suffer damage. And I believe that is at the root of it being hated. So let's go to... so I got wrist locked very badly in Brazil by the same guy 3 times in the same role. And so he passed my guard. I think his nickname was Homol. Big Homel, I think. Anyway, he was just a bitter kind of a man. He was weight and absolute champion at every coloured belt, and then he got a career right around the black belt and never became the weight and absolute champion at black belt.
Right.
While all these alliance guys came through and became great champions. And I think he was quite bitter because of that. He had me in side control, and he had my other arm controlled with his legs, and he just did the thing where you like
Catch the elbow and
just drop the chest on the wrist. And I was just like, yeah. And he was like, "What are you?"
Can't tap because this one's trapped and this one's getting wrist locked.
And he was like, "Why are you screaming?" And I was like, "Stop!" They're like, "Yeah, tap." He did this to me 3 times, each time very like fast and hard. And then I didn't like obviously want to cry in the roll, but I was like, a lot of pain. And then he called our good friend Adam over, and we can get Adam to ratify this conversation. This guy spoke English, very good English. He's a lawyer. He got Adam over to come over and translate how I had been disrespectful to him for screaming.
Oh, wow.
When he submitted me and that I should just tap, even though he organized it so I could not tap. And he gave me a lecture in Portuguese and got Adam to translate in English, even though this guy spoke English.
Wow, brutal.
I couldn't train. So I was in Brazil at that time there was a longer stint, 6 months. I couldn't train properly with my left hand.
Had he listened to the podcast and maybe disagreed with your stance on some items?
We didn't have a podcast at this stage, Joe. But yeah, look, I mean, I've always been a polarizing character. But no, I couldn't grip properly with my left hand for a month.
Wow.
I was basically training with one hand for a month.
Yeah.
I couldn't even put weight in my hand. And this is what I wanted to say. It's like, even though my wrist was not broken, the connective tissue around my wrist was so inflamed and so aggravated, I couldn't do much with my hand. And so I believe that based off this kind of experience, people are like, dirty wrist locker, that guy, And
here's a message I got on Instagram the other day. Hey guys, just wanted to let you know that my daughter and I both downloaded the Bulletproof for BJJ app, and we are loving it so much. I haven't enjoyed going to the gym this much for years. I'm kicking myself that it took me this long to try your programs. Fam, let me tell you, if you haven't checked it out, the Bulletproof for BJJ app is an excellent resource for you to build a strong, flexible body that can perform well on the mats and get injured as little as possible. It is as close to an insurance policy as you can have in this game, and you only need to train 2 to 3 hours a week to get the benefits from it. We have built the programs so that it takes the least amount of time possible so that you can focus on what you love, which is doing jiu-jitsu. If you go to the App Store now, you can start a 2-week trial for free. Simply search Bulletproof for BJJ, download the app, get in, start training, and get instant connection with JT and myself and the coaching staff so that we can help you on the journey. Go to the App Store, get the app. We'll see you on the inside.
There's nothing worse than feeling tired and gassed out, and you've only just gotten into your first roll. You know what could be causing this, my friends? Dehydration. Dehydration is an absolute jiu-jitsu killer. What I do to make sure that I don't experience this is I use Sodi. Sodi is today's sponsor. Sodi, SODII.com.au has got you covered with all the flavors of the rainbow. The perfect mix of sodium, potassium, and magnesium keeps the water in your muscles so you can keep rolling longer, harder, and stronger and not feel gassed out. Go to sodi.com.au and use the code Bulletproof15 for 15% off. Get hydrated and roll stronger today. Have you ever experienced a terrible wrist lock or had a bad wrist lock experience?
I've had I don't think I've been wrist locked like proper, but I've had my wrist attacked. I remember by a dude in Brazil when I was a blue belt training at that killer gym Barbosa in Sao Paulo, and there was a black belt that I trained with there who was just a wedge of a human, and he passed my guard and was kind of in like a side control 2 sort of position, and I was framing on his hip, and he just did that heavy hip switch, but he hit it. Like he hit it so hard. My wrist almost blew out. I didn't have time to do anything, you know. It taught me a lesson.
Yeah.
Don't put your hand there. But I was like, he really hit that with malice. Like he wanted to fuck me up.
Yeah.
I feel like it happened twice in the roll, but the second time was I went more of a false grip to
avoid.
But I was like, but noted. But these days I did a lot of work on the wrists, right?
Yeah.
And so, I don't feel like I haven't encountered someone in a role who's a good wrist locker.
Right.
But usually if someone does have a go, I can usually cop it. I'm like, I'm just like because my wrist will flex or extend.
But you're strong there too, right?
Exactly. Like I've got that mobility.
I think for many people who do jiu-jitsu over
if you're a wrist locker and we roll, you have nothing to prove to me. I just stated
Joey
I haven't rolled with a wrist locker. That's just eat your wrist lock. Come at me.
Come at me.
No, don't worry. I'll never roll it again. No more open mats.
Is that a challenge?
Yeah.
Well,
because people have a cheap go at it, right? Like, like they got you there, and you're like, oh yeah, go on. Like I know you don't have a great position right now. I'll let you stretch me out a bit.
Give it a crack.
Yeah.
Stretch me out, baby. Well, actually, another disabling time I had wrist locks was with actually Bernardo Faria.
Oh, yeah.
And this is like, shout out Bernardo. I love Bernardo. There was no malice in this at all. It was just, it was my first long stay trip in Brazil, 2011 maybe. It was after the World Pro, back when the Abu Dhabi World Pro was the only comp where people got paid. And Claudio Calazans, who was originally under Atos at that time, judoka, whatever, was wrist locking everyone from close guard. And I think he might have, I don't know if he beat Rodolfo. He had beaten some high level names with a wrist lock from close guard. So the whole thing, Fabio had said to everybody, all right, we're going to be doing wrist locks from close guard. And I just showed up like, I don't know what's going on here. All right, whatever. And no one wanted to go with Bernardo. I think Bernardo had just fought and just competed at that comp. And he's a lovely guy. You know, I kind of knew who he was. Like he just won the world championship the year before. And he was like, oh, hey, man. And I was like, hey, you go with Bernardo. And it was just drilling like, for 5 minutes from close guard. And I was like, and he wasn't going flat out, but he was just absolutely
whacking them on,
just chipping away. He wasn't doing it hard, but he also wasn't doing it softly either. He was getting the tap. But because of the position of being in close guard, I couldn't actually tap. I had to just yelp in pain. Anyway, at the end of the 5 minutes, he said, okay, you go. This is your turn. It's like when
wrists were all cooked.
Yeah, I had no power to be able to apply a wrist lock. And Bernardo's like, go on, you can get me, man. Like, go for it. And I was like, I'm trying, bro. I just got the sloppy hands, bro. It's like when you I don't know if you ever fall asleep on your arm and then your arm just goes completely like limp.
Yeah.
And for days, my wrists hurt.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't effectively do much. So here's the thing. Wrist locks are effective, but I believe, like, let's talk about like a gradient of injurious submissions. So if we look at an armbar, most people can eat an armbar because of your ability to move around, right? Yeah. And people will typically tap sooner than ligaments are broken. Generally, I'm speaking very generally here. In the same way with like a knee bar, regularly people will tap because of like the hamstring stretch. And there's a lot of strong muscles supporting that unless it's like a lateral knee bar.
Yeah.
So people will tap before the actual injury occurs.
Yeah.
But with a heel hook, the reason why heel hook's so devastating, you feel no pain.
There's no muscular tension.
You feel tension in the joint if you know what's up, and then
yeah,
and then
but there's no like intense or extreme stretch sensation to let you know, hey, you're at the very end of your threshold here.
This is about to turn into like at least one, if not all, the major ligaments in your knee disintegrating.
It's the beauty of rotational joint attacks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because yeah, like if you attack the ankle in a straight fashion, that's a straight ankle lock, and you can feel, oh, this is really tight.
Yeah.
Right? Even though a lot of people don't tap to it. Whereas, yeah, once you make it rotational with a heel hook, it's like you don't get that indicator.
And I mean, obviously it travels up the leg. Like it's going, the torque's going to the knee. But even if you think about why footlocks have become more devastating with the ankle is people rotate. It's more like a figure four pressure. It's that lateral fucking twist where like Aoki is like also inside.
Yeah.
But people aren't just like trying to stretch the foot this way. They are putting
they're rotating that shit.
Yeah, and that's where the ligaments really suffer. I believe the reason why people I actually don't grudge. I have also grievously injured someone with a wrist lock, which I didn't intend to. But what I'd say on that is because we do everything with our hands, right? Everything in life. If your wrist is fucking sore, it doesn't matter if you're an office worker, a tradesperson, anything. You just go to pick up a cup and you're like, oh, my wrist. You can't put weight on it. I believe that's why wrist locks are hated, because it's pain you can't hide from.
Yeah, just talking about like the nature of the anatomy there too. Like you think about an armbar, there's two really long levers.
Yeah.
Like the forearm is really long.
Yeah.
So and then the other side of the lever, which you're controlling, which is generally the torso, is like huge. So you chuck your legs over that.
Yeah.
Squeeze your legs together, then you grab the hold of this big lever, and like you've got great control there as the attacker.
Yes.
Whereas the hand, like the actual hand to the fingers, like the backside of the palm, is so small. So you don't really get on a wrist and then like, I'm just going to hang out here on this wrist for a bit, like you do with heel hooks or arm bars. So that's, I think, the nature of it is like you got to hit it hard and fast for it to work.
Yeah, because people also will just.
Yeah, like if you don't hit it hard and fast, you're not controlling it. So they're just, oh shit.
Yes.
So that means that like it becomes something that you have to apply speed and intensity to.
Yeah.
Whereas we all know like you can apply intensity to entering the armbar, but then you can you don't
like, have to break.
Exactly. You don't have to reef that shit. I mean, unless you really want to. But so I can see where it's problematic in that way. You got to hit it quick.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, because it does. You can do a wrist lock without great setup. You can also do it with very intricate amounts of setup. Like I said, I was in the treasure trove, which is Reddit. People go, man, wrist locks, and then people are like, well, I have this intricate one where I wrap the wrist with my gi and I invert and I go like this, and it breaks their wrist and their elbow.
Oh, is that the one where they spin, where they grab?
Yeah, and
you spin under the arm, under the. Oh, that's just.
But that's what I'm saying. The reason why I believe it's so polarizing is it's incredible. It is effective, but there's those who do it and those who have it done to them. It's rare to find someone who's in the middle. I think I'm kind of in the middle. I don't actively look for wrist locks.
No, I don't.
But I still can see that it's worthy. It's valid.
I see the split as being on different terms, which is there are who just will apply something hard and fast and don't give a shit.
Right.
And then there's people who don't want to hurt their training partners.
Yeah, fair.
And it's like, yeah, whatever, it works, but I'm not trying to anyone. And there's other people, it's like, it's jiu-jitsu, man. Like, it's what we do. We people up.
It's the game.
I'm coming at you. You know what I mean? It's kill or be killed.
So is that the split then? Those who
and not
that's
C-U-N-C-E.
That's not how I was going to say it.
But I can think of a couple of those people. You know those people that you know when you run, they hit submissions with an intensity and an aggressiveness. So you're like, I really got to be switched on when I roll with that cat. There's those people, and then there's the people that you're like, oh no, I know that so and so's chill.
But
like still a tough role,
but
but
could you not say that there's times in your life when you are more that and not that?
yeah, you switch.
So,
You're not
Hey,
born.
remember Joey Natural. You're the one who did the jump guillotine in your first 2 lessons,
Of
right?
course.
So even though you're a retired,
Yeah.
you found the family life. That guy's still going to come. You'll be there fixing the lawnmower, doing whatever. And then some random stranger walks up your driveway and he just says, Joe Worthington. And you look up and you're like,
Oh, you want some more, huh? No.
It's Kill Bill
But that wasn't
Revenge.
bad intentions. That was just a
No,
a
but
shit
it
training
doesn't
accent because I did a silly thing.
I know, but what I'm saying is,
Hey, it's super common these days that you want to do some jiu-jitsu learning outside of your time in the academy. And it makes a lot of sense because you only have certain times you can get to the academy, but you might have idle time at a computer or on your phone during the day when you could put 20 minutes into studying some jiu-jitsu. Let me tell you from my own experience, there's a bunch of platforms out there, but by far the most effective platform I have come across and used personally is Submeta. It is the most comprehensive online learning library, and the format of the lessons actually solidify the stuff you're learning. So instead of just sort of spewing out a bunch of techniques and you hoping that you're going to remember them, it actually has a really neat little way of making sure you absorb the techniques and the learnings, and it even hits you with the questionnaire to make sure that you've processed the video you've just watched. Lachlan Giles is on there, B-Team's on there, there's a bunch of great stuff. And right now, you can get $16 off when you use the code Bulletproof16 at checkout. Go to submeta.io, use the code Bulletproof16 to get $16 off and take your learning of jiu-jitsu to the next level.
it doesn't matter your intention. Your intention was, I got to submit this guy. You didn't know the repercussions, right? You didn't know what you didn't know.
Well, yeah, I was just doing the moves
You're
that
just
I've been
doing,
taught to me the
because
last
you
lesson.
thought that was
Yeah.
right? And what I think
But yes,
is,
we have the capacity to be and also not be a. Like
it's
that is
over time.
Yeah, we can change, right?
Kill enough people and then go, I'm going to retire from this assassin game.
And I think we can all agree that there's certain people you roll with that will bring out certain aspects of your position on that spectrum more so than another.
Yeah.
There's people I roll with, I'm like, I don't like who I become when I roll with that person. There's people like, I really like rolling with Sonso because it's good. I don't go into the
Dark places.
red, you know.
Yeah, man. I think that is the challenge, is just because it's allowed or it fits within the rules, does that mean that's good enough reason to do it? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're allowed to do it, but should you? Like,
You know, it's like, was it Gianni Grippo who just hit that
Just ripped.
standing heel hook?
yeah, because the guy's leg was there.
Yeah, leg was dangling and he just reefed that thing,
Oh,
right?
dude.
And a lot of people were spewing about that.
It was
And
kind
it-
of ugly.
It was a move, but it was like it's competition, right? It's competition. It's a submission grappling comp. This is the name of the
Got to
game.
make it happen.
And you're a black belt. It's
Right.
like, I would have hated to have been on the receiving end of that. But you're like, that's the terms that are agreed to here. And so in that way, I'm like, wristlocks have a place. And, you know, I could imagine someone out there that's like a master of wristlocks who loves the intricacy of them and loves getting you, like luring you into a trap where they can apply it without having to hurt you.
yeah,
I'm
sure that's possible.
Like when you roll with, when I've rolled with like Jeremy Paul Skinner or something.
Yeah.
And he just starts attacking your legs and you're like, oh God. Oh God. And then eventually he gets to a point where he looks at you and he's like, it's checkmate.
Yeah,
and you know, right?
Yeah.
And so you're like, he didn't have to hurt me.
yeah.
Right? He
nice.
just, it was really technical and we got to this pointy end of the pyramid and now I'm not going anywhere. Or the funnel is a better way to put it.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that it's in the approach in that way that all of that shit can be done in a really responsible and sort of safe way. It's the people who throw that shit on opportunistically in training that I would say are the true cats of the game.
But I would say, do you not become a master of wristlocks without starting out as a complete?
Maybe you got to go through that fire.
maybe you've got to be John Wick.
To make that omelet, you got to break a few eggs.
Ooh, but that's the thing. I just want to reflect on this. I was thinking about assassin movies, you know. Often with
Natural
like
transition. Go ahead.
yeah, hey, who doesn't love a good assassin movie? But I was just thinking about like John Wick, right? The context of John Wick is he's a retired assassin. They come, they kill his missus. they also then kill the dog, which is like the grounds for like.
No one actually remembers that the wife got killed. It's all about the dog.
How dare you kill like
Monsters.
a puppy? Yeah, right. Yeah. And so it's funny. You always see this relationship between him and having a dog. Like that's the man and his dog, you know.
Yeah.
And that the fact the dog could be threatened means 1,000 men must die.
Yeah.
You know, like that's.
Yeah.
But what's
It
interesting
seems
is
proportionate.
yeah, everybody forgets like this guy's a trained killer from the Russian mafia or wherever he was, you know, the Romani family, whatever he's from, the Gypsy Romani. He's killed hundreds of men. Like he deserves to die as much as anyone deserves to die. Like, but it's funny that he's the protagonist. Don't get me wrong.
He's the hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're like, he's a bad man. He comes in, he murders everyone. But I'm reluctant. But you'd still kill everyone. Like that's.
He didn't want to. You forced his hand.
Yeah, well, that's how it is.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if can we have wristlocks without having do you know what I mean? Like it's like, you know, this is society. You know, can wristlocks be done responsibly, Joe?
I absolutely think they can.
Okay.
I absolutely think that. I mean, you know, I'm thinking of like, probably not from standing. Standing ones, all the standing ones. Yeah, because you got no control, right?
It has to be.
It's just like, grip and go. But like, you know, you got someone in side control or you got someone in a null south of some kind and you start, particularly in the gi, you start closing up space and catching an arm in there. Yeah, you know.
It's there. All right, well, there it is, folks. Wristlocks. The best locks or the worst locks? It is up to you. Sound out in the comments. We appreciate your input on these things. And while you're there, give us a like, give us a subscribe. We appreciate y'all.